happy to be your host for this media briefing. I'd like to invite everyone to please rise for the Philippine National Anthem.
Bye.
To Asia Pacific's College, Analytics Center of NAMFREL for the 2025 elections. So we are happy that we are joined this morning by members of the NAMFREL National Council. Can we take a view there? Maricor Acol, all right. We'd also like to recognize representatives from the diplomatic community, particularly the Embassy of Singapore. If you are here, please rise to be recognized. Hello. From the European Union delegation here in the Philippines. Good morning, sir. We'd like to call on the NAMFREL national staff and volunteers who are with us this morning. Our partners and special guests and the international election observers, particularly from the European Union Election Observation Mission. Good morning, ma'am. Morning, ma'am. Morning, ma'am. Morning, ma'am. Morning, ma'am. Morning, ma'am. Morning. We are also privileged to have with us former NAMFREL National Chairperson and former COMELEC Chairperson, Attorney Christian Monsod. Good morning, sir. All right. So, the media release that was prepared by NAMFREL will now be read to us by the National Chairperson of NAMFREL, Mr. Angel Averia, Jr.
Good morning to everyone. Magandang umaga po. Sa katatapos po nating halalan, yung sa ating, I will go through yung preliminary assessment based on the observations of NAMFREL. This will form part of our report for the 2025 elections. So NAMFREL wishes to congratulate the Filipino people for again turning out in droves to vote on election day and making their voices heard through their votes. NAMFREL also expresses its deep appreciation for all its Bantay ng Bayan volunteers. Kasama po yung mga estudyante dito sa Asia Pacific College. So, Bantay ng Bayan volunteers nationwide for following all processes of the election day and helping ensure that the Philippine elections are free, fair, and transparent. As NAMFREL continues to receive observations from its volunteers deployed nationwide, NAMFREL is able to see a clearer picture of the conduct of election day processes. NAMFREL reiterates its initial assessment on election morning that in general, the 2025 national and local elections were peaceful and orderly. However, NAMFREL has also noted that in some parts of the country, Election Day was marred by violence and other public disturbances that caused disruption and delay in the conduct of Election Day processes in said areas. Election Day also saw issues related to the automated counting machines, or ACMs, and to physical arrangements in voting centers usually expected because of high voter turnouts that brought about inconvenience to many voters. NAMFREL condemns the incidents of violence reported and verified by NAMFREL observers that took place in several municipalities of Lanao del Sur, as well as in Silay, Negros Occidental, and in Datu Sinsuat, Maguindanao del Norte. NAMFREL is also following other incidents reported in the media, but have not been verified by our volunteers. Violence has no place in a democratic society. NAMFREL encourages authorities to thoroughly investigate these incidents and bring the perpetrators to justice. NAMFREL is part of the Independent Election Monitoring Center, or IEMC, for BARM and Sulu, a collaborative initiative by several organizations including NAMFREL, the Institute for Autonomy and Governance, or IAG, the Notre Dame University, or NDU, the Notre Dame Broadcasting Corporation, the Climate Conflict Action and Coalition for Social Accountability and Transparency, and the PPCRV in Cotabato City. Based in NDU in Cotabato City, the IAMC aims to uphold electoral integrity by tracking election-related incidents, conducting real-time results reporting, and facilitating engagement with stakeholders such as COMELEC, security agencies, and the media. The IEMC has been releasing reports since before Election Day. The center will further intensify its partnerships and activities as the Bangsamoro region gets closer to the 2025 BARM parliamentary elections is scheduled for October. NAMFREL continues to receive Election Day reports about the automated counting machines not performing as expected, observed in a number of polling places across the country. NAMFREL observers, however, have emphasized that most of the reported incidents involving the ACMs were immediately resolved. Some of the most common observations related to ACMs were the following. 1. Ballots not being accepted because the scanners were not clean. ACM lens had needed to be wiped, and which took up to about 20 minutes in some cases. Second, ballots not being accepted at first try, but fixed by reinserting the ballots. Ballot paper jams due to ballot tear or crease. Then the voter verified paper audit trail paper jam. And last is the ACMs slowing down, attributed to overheating. There were reports of voters complaining that their VVPAT indicated an overvote for a position and thus invalidating the vote, while the voters insisted that they were not overvote, or they did not overvote. Apart from issues concerning the ACMs, a common observation made by NAMFREL observers inside polling places was the lack of secrecy, some due to members of the electoral boards, or EBs, inserting the filled-out ballots instead of the voters. There were also a lack of ballot secrecy folders, according to observers, or voters unable to fill out their ballots immediately because people lining up to insert their ballots in the ACM still had the folders with them. Usual problems associated with a high turnout of voters were again observed in the 2025 national and local elections, including overcrowding, long queues, and lack of seating, including for members of the vulnerable sectors. Many voters spent a considerable amount of time trying to find their names on the voters' lists, trying to know their precinct numbers, and trying to locate their polling places. NAMFREL observers consider the presence of voter assistance desks on site, where on-site volunteers provided assistance, especially to members of the vulnerable sectors, and the decision to have early voting hours as bright spots in the 2025 national and local elections. After the close of polls, issues arose that NAMFREL found alarming. One, there was delay in the reception of election returns through the COMELEC provided and assigned servers for stakeholders' use, one each for NAMFREL, the Philippine Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, the media, the Lakas Christian Muslim Democrats Party, or the dominant majority party, and the Nationalista Party, or the dominant minority party. The expectation set during COMELEC briefings was that stakeholders will receive electronically transmitted election returns shortly after the close of polls and in 15-minute intervals after receipt of the first transmission. This expectation was not met. Stakeholders received empty result packages between the close of polls and 8:56 p.m., the time when the first results package was received, or the results package that contained 30% of the expected election returns was received. In explaining the possible causes of delay, the COMELEC said that receipts of ER transmissions required time to process. Except for the 2016 ENYE issue and the 2019 7-hour glitch, receipts of results packages in previous elections was timely and uneventful. NAMFREL believes that there is an underlying issue that may have caused the delay in the receipt of results packages. We ask the COMELEC to determine and explain the cause of delay. Second, the reported double recording of election returns and the subsequent adjustments made to the aggregated unofficial and partial results. The COMELEC explained that the first set of election returns received were packed into a results package and delivered to the stakeholders' assigned servers. The next set of election returns received were similarly packed into a results package together with the previously received election returns. Subsequent election returns received were similarly packed in the same compounding manner. NAMFREL is aware of the manner of packing the election returns into results packages, and its program is able to detect the changes between results packages and thus avoid such double entry. Other stakeholders are similarly aware of the manner of packing the election returns into results packages. Then the third issue is the intermediary process. In explaining the delay in reception and double recording of election returns, the COMELEC mentioned that the election returns had to be processed. In past elections where the AES was used, ERs had to undergo the same process of decrypting each election return, converting the election return into CSV format, packing the election returns into results packages, and delivering the results package to each server. NAMFREL requests the COMELEC to clarify the following points. If the ACM transmits directly to each COMELEC provided server assigned to each stakeholder, Is the intermediary process done in each server? If not, where is it done? If it is, was the source code of the process reviewed? If the ACM transmits directly to each COMELEC-provided server, the server could have received single ER transmissions, meaning there's no longer need to package them into results packages. Packing the ERs into results packages is unnecessary and simply allowing the stakeholders to decrypt each ER received by providing the stakeholders password for decryption. NAMFREL has previously recommended that the ER format to be transmitted electronically be in election markup language. There's no need for conversion to CSVs because the election markup language format can simply be posted on the websites. This format does not need to be converted to CSV. A few weeks back, NAMFREL also launched a couple of mobile applications. So we launched the NAMFREL Operation QR Count 2025 or OQC 2025. For those of you who remember, NAMFREL invented the Operation Quick Count. We're just reviving it into Operation Quick Count. So NAMFREL launched the Operation QR Count 2025 or OQC 2025 to enable everyone, not just NAMFREL volunteers, to help independently verify transmitted election results by scanning the QR codes of the election returns printed prior to transmission. On the election returns posted outside the polling places, and on the voter-verified paper audit trail, or what we call locally as the recibo. NAMFREL released two apps for 2025 for the 2025 national and local elections. The first is the ER code scanning app, which was made available to the public, and a VVPAT scanning app made available to select NAMFREL volunteers. There was a total of 4,312 downloads for the public app. There were 668,671 ER codes scanned, or QR codes scanned, which represented 2,787 distinct precincts nationwide. The transmission came from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. NAMFREL is in the process of comparing each and every QR code with the electronically transmitted results. For VVPAT scanning, COMELEC allowed NAMFREL to do so in 10 clustered precincts in each of the following regional groupings: Northern Luzon, Southern Luzon, the National Capital Region, Visayas, Mindanao, and the Bangsamoro region. NAMFREL received VVPAT data from 52 precincts for a total of 49,432 QR codes scanned. NAMFREL is still in the process of auditing and comparing them with the election returns from the selected clustered precincts. Let me acknowledge Mr. Gus Lagman, the one who invented the Operation Quick Count. I just said, Gus, that we revive the OQC with the Operation QR code for these elections. Welcome to APC and welcome to NAMFREL. Reports of technical difficulties were sent to NAMFREL's systems team, majority of which is the challenge in transmitting the data scanned. This is mostly attributed to the server capacity, which eased out after peak use. There were also reports of the apps not able to scan QR codes. This can be attributed to several factors, including the camera of the phone, lighting, and the process of scanning. All recommendations and complaints were collated and will be used for future versions of the apps. In summary, despite the short period between Election Day and the announcement of the public app and getting approval from COMELEC for VVPAT scanning, NAMFREL was able to encourage public participation, perform the tasks, and achieve the objective of having an independent, verifiable data source and data path. With time and budget constraints, the system was able to set a framework for a much larger operation that can effectively pave the way for a precinct-level audit done within Election Day. Coming to this project in partnership with the Asia Pacific, in pursuit of promoting transparency and data-driven engagement in the 2025 Philippine midterm elections, NAMFREL has partnered with the Asia Pacific College and Geodata Systems Technology, Inc. to establish a collaborative election data analytics initiative designed to enhance public understanding of the election outcomes, monitor transmission anomalies, and identify trends in voting behavior through an integrated system of data aggregation, processing, and presentation. An election analytics dashboard was developed and hosted by the Asia Pacific College, which committed to aggregate and analyze election data, particularly electronically transmitted election returns provided by NAMFREL. Student analysts under faculty supervision were tasked with processing raw election data to identify irregularities, create visualizations, and present summaries accessible to the public and stakeholders. Meanwhile, Geodata Systems contributes to critical geospatial and technical expertise. Its role focuses on the secure handling of transformation, and mapping of election-related data, including precinct-level information, election results from the 2022 and 2025 elections, and projection modeling for analytics by aligning the data sets spatially and demographically. Geodata supports deeper insights into voter turnout, regional variances, and possible data discrepancies. Preliminary analysis of the data from the initial hours following the close of polls revealed the issues that were earlier discussed in this report, notably a significant delay in the transmission of results to the servers assigned to NAMFREL and other stakeholders, as it turned out, and the aggregated results reflecting signs of double recording, likely due to the compounding manner in which the results packages were prepared and delivered. The NAMFREL APC Geodata collaboration marks a significant step towards institutionalizing evidence-based election monitoring and promoting digital accountability. By mobilizing academic talent, leveraging private sector analytics capabilities, and sustaining civic vigilance, the partnership not only enhances the credibility of the 2025 elections, but also sets a precedent for how future electoral exercises can be safeguarded through innovation and collaboration. Lastly, the random manual audit. NAMFREL is a member of the Coalition of Civil Society and Professional Organizations, or CSPOs, in the Random Manual Audit Committee organized by the Commission on Elections. The RMAC also includes the Commission of Elections, of course, the Philippine Statistics Authority, the CSPOs led by the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, with the Legal Network for Truthful Elections and the Philippine Institute of Certified Public Accountants as other members. Ballot boxes from 762 clustered precincts in 254 legislative districts have been randomly selected on election day using a software developed by the PSA, or the Philippine Statistics Authority. The random manual audit commenced on May 14 with the receipt of ballot boxes at the Citadines Bay City, Manila, the central venue of the RMA. So the RMA is currently ongoing. NAMFREL will be submitting a final report to the Commission on Elections on the findings of its observations, identifying areas that could be further strengthened and recommending measures to help ensure the conduct of more efficient and transparent election exercises. End of statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Angel Averia Jr., National Chairperson of NAMFREL. For some good reason, you were named Angel to keep watch over the elections. All right. So that was a comprehensive report, but at this point, I'd like to acknowledge a few other persons who are with us. Of course, our good friend Gus Lagman is here. And also, let's acknowledge the officers, the faculty, the staff, as well as the volunteer students from Asia Pacific College. And we also have with us members of the media. If you're here, please rise to be recognized. You will have your space later to ask your questions. All right. So following next will be very brief presentations. And I would like to call on the Research Director of the Institute for Autonomy and Governance, Jean Samaranos, and the Executive Director of Climate Conflict Action, Dr. Pancho Lara, who will present preliminary findings of the Independent Election Monitoring Center, BARM, and Sulu. They will be joining us remotely. So I hope we can see their images on the screen. Audio, please.
Yes, we can hear you from.
May I proceed?
Yes, we can hear you.
Climate Conflict Action is one of the conveners of the Independent Election Monitoring System, spearheaded by Ma'am Jean Group, by the Institute of Autonomy and Governance. And our task as CCAA, as part of the IEMC, was to monitor incidents, violent incidents and tensions that happened during the elections, particularly in the Bangsamoro and in Sulu. So our organization is an independent non-government organization that is collecting and analyzing climate and conflict data, and we have our critical events monitoring system. Ito po yung ginamit namin for our election monitoring. ever since 2019. So for these elections, we already have our data, the number of incidents as well as the number of deaths. So we started our count since the start of the filing of candidacy in the Bangsamoro, that was in October, up to a day after election. So far, we have now recorded 242 deaths. That's spanning from October up to May 13 elections, and we have 719 discrete violent incidents that we recorded. This is a surge if we're going to compare it in the barangay and SK elections in 2023, where we also recorded from the filing of the candidacy in July 2023 up to the elections in October, we recorded at that time 438 violent incidents and 165 deaths. So makikita po natin na for these elections, there's a surge from 165 in 2023 to 244 incidents. So most of these incidents is gun related. So we are also looking into how the implementation of the gun ban was enforced in the Bangsamoro, given that most of those deaths are perpetrated through the use of a weapon. And we also, I think 2 days before election, and the IAMC and the CCAA, we are monitoring the armed clashes, particularly in Maguindanao del Sur, which had become a hotbed of violence for these elections. At least 70 families were displaced in Pandag when around 40 armed men attacked the two barangays in Pandag. And hours later, it happened in May 9 up to May 10. Hours later, we also recorded explosions in Sharif Agwa near the residence of a candidate. And later we also, over the weekend before elections, it had become violent in these areas. We also recorded clashes and tensions arising in Buluan. And we know that Buluan is under COMELEC control. And during the elections, but for us, we also salute the security sector, both the police and the PNP and the COMELEC, for their effort during the elections day. Because during elections, we recorded 5 deaths. That's a sharp contrast in the barangay and SK elections, where we recorded 11 deaths on the election day. So we saw an improvement in terms of enforcing the security measures, especially near polling precincts. So many of our monitors from the ground are reporting that, of course, the fist fights, the brawls are quite common in the Bangsamoro context. But we know that with the reinforcement and the deployment of especially of the military and the police, we know that there has been an exodus of many reinforcement na pumapasok sa BARM way before elections. So we know that supposedly maraming mga factors that could have disrupted the election, the voting process during elections. But nakita po natin, and we appreciate the military and the police for acting swiftly and quite forcefully na iayos talaga yung pila, at kung may nagkakasutukat at mukhang magkakagulo ay talagang they fired warning shot just to prevent any escalation of violence. And for now, for us, we are also, of course, the elections has been over, but for us, we know that the violence may still continue based on our history, based on our records in the previous elections. We think that it's very imperative still to continue the monitoring, the security efforts in the post-election, because right now, 2 days ago, we already recorded 2 deaths that is still related to the election. Looks like it's a retaliatory attack, particularly in special geographic area where we recorded 1 death of a young girl, a daughter of a supporter of a mayor-elect in special geographic areas. So I think that's a quick assessment for us, and we are still calling that the security measures should still be in place during the post-elections up to the parliamentary elections, because we know that the next few months may still have growing tension and violence in the Bangsamoro. Over to Ma'am Jean. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Lizelle. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jean, and I am from the Institute for Autonomy and Governance. So I would be presenting the preliminary observations of the Independent Election Monitoring Center, which this data, of course, were referred and conferred to the CCAA, Lizelle. So I would like to begin with the acknowledging wins, the good points. We also have good points, right, Rizal? And we would like to present the acknowledging or the acknowledging wins. There are four here. The first one is the due consideration given for vulnerable sectors. Now we appreciate so much the special voting window for senior citizens, pregnant, and PWDs, the early morning hours. 5 to 7 a.m. Although this was only implemented mostly in cities and centers and less in the peripheries, generally, throughout the day, the vulnerable voters were given priority in queuing and in voting. We also acknowledge the diligence shown by the COMELEC and all poll workers. They were very devoted in protecting and ensuring fair, completely conducting the exercise of suffrage. The COMELEC officials were very cooperative with election monitoring teams like us, although they may not be immediately available at all times because of over concentration of tasks that require their immediate attention. But generally, they have been very, very devoted in their tasks. Third, we acknowledge also that there was no major conflict between the state forces and the MLF and the MNLF, BF, the BF. This only implies that the memorandum of agreement of understanding, between the BF and the GPH on the protocols for the election day was generally maintained and enforced. And finally, we also noted that people had been very, very brave and courageous in really exercising their votes despite all the intimidations, the incidents, the pressure, the logistical attacks against free and fair elections, which CCAA is saying could be a coordinated campaign to disrupt the voting process. Still, people in the Barm and Sulu have been very, very brave in casting their votes despite all this pressure, despite all these challenges. So, what were the challenges during the elections? Well, first of which, we noted vote buying and selling. As in the past elections, we know that vote money politics has always been a public perception. We noted manifestations of vote buying in Maguindanao del Sur, Maguindanao del Norte, even in Tawi-Tawi. Um, Lanao del Sur even mentioned that the votes buying and selling started as early as during the Ramadan period. Now, the problem of money politics also linked to several attempts to usher in flying voters. It also led to proliferation of disinformation, particularly over social media, the culture of trolling, spreading information, disinformation to discredit their rival candidates. Another challenge that we have noted is the fear politics. The unresolved presence of loose firearms and organized armed groups enabled many accounts of unrest and intimidation of voters and poll watchers even before the election day. What is really um, prominent in here is the mob rule. The mob groups observed, particularly in Maguindanao del Sur and Maguindanao del Norte, and even all over Barm, instilled fear by intimidating and harassing voters and poll watchers. Now, there are many incidents reported in the Abdullah Sangki, in Tamuntaka, in Cotabato City, Maguindano del Norte, Maguindano del Sur, even in South OP and Lano del Sur, also in a little fist fight and brawls in Pasultan. Third of which is the lack of command control. Now, this is very particular in Dato Udin Sinswat in Maguindano del Norte, where violence is being propagated by attackers who feel disadvantaged in their bailiwick areas. Notably, intimidation was not through firearms, but more on the show of force in numbers and their strong presence by assembling in polling centers in the vicinity. This is particularly true in Maguindano del Norte, as I've mentioned, where the delay in the opening of voting in that audience seats one, where a mob led by a candidate for vice mayor stopped the delivery of election paraphernalia. Note that the OS is under Comelec control, and we wonder how and why the mob had succeeded in delaying the opening of the polling precincts by half a day. Imagine half a day. There was also a lack of central authority and decision making and the flow of information. Although, yes, IEMC is said to be a collaboration of 7 bodies, all of which the objective, all of which is to channel information, report incidents for immediate action to the authorities. Um, Although the channels of information were clearly defined, the centralized flow of information was not observed. There was no composite theme except in Tawi-Tawi, and so there is confusion as to where complaints and observations by citizens and monitors can be submitted. Of course, we understand that the election officers were unavailable to respond to queries. There was also a breakdown of balance in monitoring and transparency, and this is particularly noted in Maguindano del Sur, Maguindano del Norte, Cotabato City, and in Basilan, where the recognized election monitors and even the media people were either driven away or not allowed to enter the polling precincts. And finally, there was connectivity issues. It was very difficult for the provinces of Basilan, Sulu, and Tawi-Tawi to pass information and reports to IEMC Center because of the lack of low connectivity and telecommunications. So I guess I will stop there. Those are the observations on the election day and before the election day of the Institute for Autonomy and Governance and the IEMC for BARM and Sulu. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our representatives from the Institute for Autonomy and Governance for their preliminary findings. Let's move on now to listen to the presentation of the Executive Director for Climate Conflict Action, Dr. Pancho Lara, who is also joining us remotely. Oh, it seems like Dr. Lara is not available, is not connected to. All right, okay, so they've already given their report, all right? Next, we'd listen to the geodata analytics to be presented by Dr. Jonathan Abalos, Director of Geospatial Data Products and Services, Geodata Systems Technologies Incorporated. Dr. Abalos?
Hello, good afternoon.
Morning, Jo. We can hear you.
Okay, hold on. Medyo nawala yung audio kanina eh. Just give us a few minutes. Okay, sige, can we start?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Okay naman po. Good to start na po.
Yes, please, Dr. Abalos.
All right, thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Jojo Abalos from Geodata Systems. So our team has created two dashboards for NAMFREL for this 2025 national and local elections. And we have here to share some high-level insights that we got from these two apps. The first app that we have prepared or made is the voter population for 2025 dashboard, which was made public before the elections. For the national and local elections in 2025, there is a total of 68.4 million registered voters, and these registered voters are all part of the total of 93,287 clustered precincts nationwide. So part of the dashboard includes a map with regions and cities and municipalities within those regions. And we have presented some key information on the vote-rich regions within the country. So among the 18 regions, the top vote-rich region is Region 4A, which is the Calabar zone. This has the 9.7 million total registered voters. This comprises 14.18% of the total voting population in the Philippines. So within Region 4A, the top um, cities and municipalities, provinces within that region are Cavite, Laguna, and Batangas. So other top vote-rich regions identified in the map are Region 3 with 7.7 million voters or 11.3% of the total voters in the country. And NCR comes third with 7.6 million voters or 11.1% of the total voters in the country. So there are also interactive maps that we have made in order to look at population densities based on classifications and color gradients. So the darker the shade, the higher the voter population of either the region, the province, or city and municipalities. The second dashboard that we have prepared is the verified incident reports dashboard. So the data from this dashboard comes from incidents reported by NAMFREL volunteers in the field. Among the reported incidents, the volunteers were able to verify 9 incidences. So with these 9 incidents, 6 all came from BARM, and then zooming in further, within BARM, 2 incidences are reported from the Marantao, Lanao del Sur, with both of these incidents relating to vote buying and vote selling. Other reports under BARM relate to violence and destruction of election equipments and election equipment and materials that were observed in different areas such as Maging, Bayang, and Marawi. Also in BARM, there's one incident in Datu Odinsinsuat, Cotabato City, wherein it was reported to have uh, no observed destruction of election equipment and materials. Outside of BARM, there is one incident each in the regions of CAR, NCR, and NIR. In Bontoc Mountain Province, so there is a reported incident on illegal campaigning. In San Juan, which is in NCR, there's a reported incident of theft of election equipment and materials. And then in Silay Negros Occidental, another reported incidents on violence. So overall, on these verified incident reports, there are 33% incidences that relates to violence and another 33% relating to buying, vote buying and vote selling. So that's all that I have, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jonathan Abalos, Director of Geospatial Data Products and Services, Geodata Systems Technologies Incorporated. We will move on next to an analysis of election data received. To present to us a background on APC analytics, we'd like to call on the Executive Director of the School of Computing and Information Technologies of APC. Let's welcome Rhea Luz Valbuena.
Good morning, everyone. Asia Pacific College President Dr. Maria Teresa Pastor Medado noted that the 2025 elections will see some 1.2 million first-time voters and about 1.8 Gen Z voters. It is therefore critically important to provide opportunities for young volunteers to directly engage in meaningful participation in our elections. We at Asia Pacific College are very pleased to collaborate with NAMFREL and to engage our academic resources, faculty members, APC staff, and student volunteers in activities that will contribute to the 2025 elections and at the same time provide real-world learning opportunities for our students. In fact, one of our graduate attributes is contribution to nation building. APC as NAMFREL Analytics site provides a landmark partnership that highlights civic engagement and academic excellence, where 31 students enrolled in Asia Pacific College Analytics and AI class and from Junior Philippine Computer Society have taken on critical roles in analyzing real-time election data during the vote transmission period. They are mentored by NAMFREL Systems Group and APC faculty members, both from the academia and industry. These students, can you please stand up? All students. These students are divided into 5 teams. The first team is the dashboard team. They design and manages the real-time data visualizations for election observers and stakeholders. The second team is the machine learning team. They explore more analytics in election data. The third team is the infrastructure website team, who ensures system reliability and deployment of analytics tools during the operations. The fourth team is the quality assurance team, who conducts rigorous testing to ensure data accuracy and tool stability. And the last team, cybersecurity team, who monitors systems for potential threats and implement safeguards during the transmissions. This operation, as you can see today, is housed in our multipurpose hall, which has been converted into the Live Analytics Hub, and you will see the dashboards behind us to support NAMFREL's efforts in promoting clean, transparent, and accountable elections. Therefore, this is more than just a class project, but this is a nation's building in action. Here, the students are not just learning theories, they are applying their technical skills in analytics, cybersecurity, AI, infrastructure, in a real-world, high-stake environment. Because we affirm and reaffirm our commitment to project-based learning in preparing students for meaningful careers that not only impact the industry, but also our country. Through this partnership, students have experienced firsthand the role of how IT helps to safeguard the democratic process and with the guidance of NAMFREL, ensures that it remains fair, accessible, and accountable, gaining exposure not just to technical operations, but to ethical decision-making, teamwork, and civic responsibility. The students' work supports NAMFREL's mission to monitor electoral processes independently, with APC contributing insights through timely, reliable, and transparent data reporting, which you can see in elections.org.ph. Thank you very much and good morning.
Thank you, Ma'am Rhea. And thank you, volunteer students, for the great work that you have done. All right. So, based on the dashboards that have been created to monitor and analyze the last elections, we have here a good picture of how our candidates for senatorial positions fared in the various regions. Okay? So the party list dashboard also gives us an idea of where their votes come from. Okay? The provincial voting behavior patterns and clustering behavior tell us how voters were either highly engaged, disengaged, active, but turned out errors in their votes, as well as mixed behavior. From this dashboard, we know the election returns, the voter turnout, and importantly, the overvotes as well as the undervotes. Overvotes are those votes which were cast with more votes than candidates listed. All right, and that's it's a point of concern. The other dashboard tells us about the duplicate election returns report. Okay, so votes, number of votes removed due to duplication. Okay, that's a very big number there, and 80 million from the senatorial race votes alone, and 7.8 million from party list race votes out of 15,000 precincts. Here is a view of unopposed candidates and mayoral and gubernatorial votes. Okay, so obviously in some parts, those who ran for office did not meet with any opposition. So it was smooth sailing for them. Now, the provincial results also allow us to granularly look at how the votes turned out for each province, as well as the members of the Sangguniang Panlalawigan. This dashboard tells us the results for every municipality and city. Okay, so I think what NAMFREL has done, and especially with the work of our volunteer students here and the faculty of Asia Pacific College, was to present a number of images that we can all learn from and appreciate what actually the vote was all about. However, from my perspective, I was looking at a way to also granularly arrive at a picture of how much of the vote cast came from different age groups. We see, for example, that we have a sense that Gen Z and the millennials have actually sounded out their voice. But how much percent of that turned out for every running candidate? Okay? The other filter that I think we could also have used was the filter of gender. Okay, so this is important because demographics, the way people vote and their behaviors, can help us appreciate better our campaigns for the next elections and what to expect from the outcomes in the forthcoming elections. So just my few pesos worth of observations. We will now go to the Q&A portion, the more exciting portion of this media briefing. So I'd like to invite our friends from the media to approach us here. Please identify your name as well as your media affiliation before you ask your question. We'd like to ask for representatives from NAMFREL and maybe Asia Pacific College. All right. On standby are our resource persons from GREDA, as well as the Institute for Autonomy and Governance in case there are questions along those lines. Sir Angel, would you like to take a seat in the panel? We'd like to invite as well Attorney Christian Monsod and Gus Lagman to join the panel of NAMFREL here. Jojo, can we have a microphone for our media friends? Dr. Medado, please join us here in the panel. All right, so Ms. Maricor Acol is holding the microphone that our friends from the media may use. Please approach Maricor. Identify yourself and your media affiliation before directing your question to anyone in the panel. All right.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Celerina Monte from NHK Japan TV. I'm wondering, with all these hitches and challenges that were encountered during the elections, could we say that there was cheating? And if there was it massive? And could you please compare it with the 2019 midterm elections and the 2022 elections?
Would you like to direct that to anyone in particular? Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to give my seat to the foreign media. Kasi
Wait.
foreign media. I can give my seat. Okay.
Okay, based on our observations, it's very difficult to make conclusions whether there was cheating or not. No? Based on because NAMFREL actually monitors the activities and preparations for the Commission on Elections for the elections. So we have such a short election cycle of 3 years. Immediately after this one, no, would be again talking to COMELEC on the preparations for 2028. So for the 2025 elections, we believe, and it was shared with us, that there were enough safeguards to the system, including the conduct of local source code review, the opening up to observers, the testing, the end-to-end tests of the system, the various systems, even observing the trusted build. The trusted build is the conversion of the software so that they can install it in the various machines. So based on our observations, nothing unusual. There was nothing unusual that we observed. Now, of course, things like this, like on the dashboard, the duplicate election returns, or even the overvotes, some parties would raise issues as regards to the accuracy and integrity of the vote results. Again, we're not passing judgment. We have to dig deeper and find out the reason for these high numbers. So we've asked COMELEC already to work with us and uncover what the underlying reasons are for these high numbers in, like, say, for example, the overvotes.
It's premature for me to make a judgment if there was cheating, but there are three areas that really bother me. This one area is, the first is the fact that from my readings and observations, the election returns from the barangay, from the precinct level, were not sent directly to PPCRV, NAMFREL, and the media. The transmission flow from the precinct level, the election returns were sent to Data Center 1, which is COMELEC, Data Center 2, which is the backup center, and Data Center 3. And this Data Center 3 was the one that sent to PPCRV, NAMFREL, the media, the majority party, the minority party. So my second point is that all the tallies, electoral data, came only from one source, which is COMELEC. Because PPCRV did not conduct a quick count of its own because they covered only 17% of the precincts nationwide. NAMFREL also did not conduct, I don't know, yung operations quick count of its own. I don't know how many precincts nationwide you had volunteers. So you had actually no tallies of your own. PPCRV had no tallies of its own. The media had no tallies of its own. So you all relied on the tallies fed to you by the data center, which came from COMELEC and which were given to you delayed. Right? So all the sources actually came only from one source, which is COMELEC, the Data Center 3. That's my second point. The third point that I notice is that yung paglilinis na sinasabi of the duplicated election returns, you did not do it, PPCRV did not do it, the media did not do it, it was done by the COMELEC. And they deleted 5 million votes. So these are the three areas that really bother me. You had no independent source of the election tallies. It all came from COMELEC.
Not yet, but we will have from the VP.
So I don't know if we can make a conclusion that we have a honest, transparent, and credible elections. I don't know. You make the decision.
Chris, yeah, wait.
I think when you look at elections, you look at two things: the quality of the process and the quality of the vote. We have been talking here about the quality of the process, and I think the findings of NAMFREL are correct. The so-called existing, what we call meat room, which did the distribution to media, government officers, and so on, and commission canvassing points. That has happened in previous elections. So as far as the quality of the process is concerned, I will go along with the findings of NAMFREL. On the quality of the vote, what are the factors here we have to consider? One is the use of money. Two is the use of force or favors by an political dynasties, and the findings of the World Bank is there are about 200 political dynasties in our country. Number three, dysfunctional political parties. They voted for persons. They did not ask, on a party basis. So, but in a way, there were some the quality of the vote. I am pleased to see that there were several dynastic families who lost in their particular elections, and the rise of young mayors around the country who are incorruptible and who are very effective and efficient. And of course, we have to take a look as well as media. I don't know if media really reported everything, but I think that what I'm disappointed in is that media sometimes engages in self-censorship. And we have to look at our incidents reports from the field in order to get the full picture of what happened. So these are the two aspects, quality of the process and quality of the vote. And maybe with the new voters, there are about how many? It's about 63% of the voters were born in 1981. So at the time of EDSA, they were about 5 years old. So I am glad. I'm glad that there is some evidence that the votes of this 63% sounds more intelligent than we had assumed before. Thank you.
Thank you. One follow-up question from the lady, and the next question will come from our younger media friend.
Just a follow-up on the answer of Sir, na nakabulo po, sir. Sorry po, I forgot the name. Ay, okay, sorry po. No to, sir, is this the first time that the ERs were not directly transmitted to other groups aside from the COMELEC? Like you have mentioned about this data center 3, which is the only center that was able to receive all these ERs from the precinct level.
Since time immemorial.
And see, okay.
I cannot answer for the previous elections, but what I can say is about in the 2022 elections, which the one thing that bothered me was that there were hundreds or maybe perhaps thousands of precincts whose election returns were received by the COMELEC transparency server in the national much ahead, even before they were sent by the precincts in the barangay. So this was in 2022 elections, no? And but I'm basing this from the findings of General Rio. I was not part of his group initially and everything. Then I really studied and read his postings in the Facebook, and so because he supported a separate presidential candidate. From their poll watchers, they had copies of the election returns. They compared their copies of the election returns, the time, and from the ones posted by the COMELEC. They compared the times it was sent and the times it was received. And there were differences, very specific. So that was my biggest the biggest item that bothered me in the 2022 elections, that there were hundreds or perhaps thousands of election returns from the precinct level that were already received much ahead by the COMELEC Center, even before they were sent by their own precincts. But of course, these results only came out more than 1 year because it was only discovered after COMELEC posted in its website the raw files. So at the time, people already moved on, and no one wanted to listen to the explanation of some electoral fraud. And okay, um, but I guess two other things that we also need to consider is that um, essentially the same person that oversaw the operations of the 2022 elections is also the same person that is overseeing the 2025 elections. And essentially the same automated election system that was used in the 2022 election is also being used now. Essentially the same thing, except you change the name, you change the number of servers from 3 servers to right now supposedly 7 servers, but actually 3 in the transmission flow. So yun, so those are the things that bad. But for this, ito lang yung observation ko. You know, I became only interested in all these things after the 2022 elections and these elections. But I also have a keen mind. You know, I'm also very observant. I attend to details. And these are the things that I see. So in fact, I only mentioned to you 3 areas that bothered me. Actually, there are 5. There are 5 that bothered me. 3 areas that bothered me. I can mention to you later on if you will, or if you're willing to listen to the 2 other areas.
The Election Law Republic Act 9369 states that from the precincts, the results should go to the Municipal Board of Canvassers, that's 1, to the central server, that's 2, to media, that's 3, and to the citizens' arm. So when Attorney Lacson said that it was the COMELEC that distributed to the 4, then that means that what happened in the last elections is not compliant with the law. Now, that is bad. That's what the law is for. We should follow the law. And that's very clear in the law, that it should go to those 4. And those results should come directly from the precincts. Kung hindi ganun ang nangyari, may problema. In 2022, at least the Manila and Cavite results passed through only 1 IP address. I just said that the results should come directly from the precincts. How can the results of Manila, Cavite, and I guess several other provinces, why should they pass through only 1 IP address? That means that there was a man in the middle. And if you were watching the results as they were being reported, that was very clear. Parang talagang may embudong pinanggagalingan. So, how can we trust our elections, no? Kaya palagi kung was our votes counted properly? Yun ang ang palaging tanong ko. And I am disappointed at the COMELEC.
If I might just add to that, I was actually earlier speaking to Eric before the start of the NAMFREL public briefing. So I asked him if all the results that they received came from their independent sources. Of course, they have some independent sources, but the tallies, the ones posted by the ABS-CBN, and the tallies posted by GMA7 and the other media from 7 o'clock or from 8:30 up to 1 p.m., 2 p.m., these tallies came from the COMELEC media server. So, saan nanggaling yung tallies na ito? So, it came from Data Center 3 were fed from you. Because what happened was that the election returns from the precinct level, pinadala sa data center 1, which is the COMELEC central server, data center 2, which is the backup center, and data center 3, which is the host for the other servers. Ito yung data center 3 ang nagpadala sa PPCRB, sa NAMFREL, sa media, sa majority and minority dominant political parties. So, they all came from that data center 3. Question is, who operates, who controls, who manages data center 3? Is it the COMELEC? So I guess that's the essence there. That's the question for me.
Well, I guess the data flow has been thoroughly explained. No? So maybe let's go to the next question.
Next question. Please introduce yourself and your media affiliation.
Good afternoon po, sir. I'm Bea po from Bombo Radio. Hello? Hello, yeah. I'm Bea po from Bombo Radio, Philippines. Sir, earlier po, actually yesterday, the COMELEC po, giniit po nila na wala, baseless yung naging overvotes na naitala ng NAMFREL, and they are questioning kung saan po nanggaling ito and ano po yung basehan ng mga naging overvotes na ito. To be fair, sir, ano po ba ang proseso kung paano po na-identify itong mga overvotes na ito and saan po ito particularly nanggaling po?
Yung overvotes, no, actually yung sa site natin dito yung kinote. No. Yung source namin, source data namin is the election returns. Na kasama dyan, which includes the precinct statistics, no, and the counts. So we just tallied the overvotes indicated in the election returns. Okay? It was COMELEC's, the ACMs that counted and identified those overvotes. We don't know how the ACMs counted the overvotes, whether, see, the overvote happens when the voter shades more circles than is allowed, yung maximum, than the maximum allowed circles. So, in the case of senators, you have 12, right? You can shade up to 12. But if you shade 13 or 14 circles, then that results into an overvote. We are not clear how the overvotes are counted, whether they are based on the number of marks beyond the maximum, or it's an instance of the overvote in a single ballot. Okay? So we have to check with the commission again on the overvotes. But the overvotes that we counted here is based on the reports that we gathered from the ACMs.
Yeah.
Chair, if I may just clarify. So the report of the 18.4 million overvotes, that's a data that came from COMELEC?
Yes.
From the ACMs itself.
Sir, follow-up question lang po regarding this po. Since sinasabi nyo nga po na it came from COMELEC, sa tingin nyo po, saan po nang gagaling yung sinasabi ngayon ng COMELEC na these are just baseless na counts po? And yung 18 million votes na po ito, na overvotes, ano pong region yung pinaka maraming naitala po ang NAMFREL so far po?
We again, that's the COMELEC commenting on the findings on the overvotes. So we don't know their basis for them to say that it is baseless. Right? The data is from the ACMs, and we just tallied everything. Right? Our analytics team, the students are looking for where they are more prevalent, so we'll get info later. So the next question, please.
Next question. Any questions?
Any more questions from our media friends?
You again?
Regarding this press statement by NAMFREL, you expressed concern regarding the violence and other disturbances in the peace and order during the elections. May we know if you have any overall data as to how many incidents of violence were recorded during that period and how serious were they?
Yeah, as mentioned by our partners, the bulk of the election violence or political violence happening during the elections was counted as early as October, when the candidates started to file their COCs. So that was the mark. So far, there were more than 200 plus incidents. In fact, if you compare it to the previous elections, there have been a surge in violence in specific areas, like in the Barm and up north. I think in Abra. In Abra, it resulted even to the deaths of some individuals. In the Barm area, of course, the traditional concern would be in the Maguindanao area and also in the Basilan area, where even election workers have been targeted. So this is unfortunate because precisely that's why we're running an elections, is because we want a peaceful transition to power and also a more peaceful transfer of choices of leaders. But apparently, some people are not convinced on the ground that running an elections peacefully is the way to go. They still employ force to get to what they want or to gain advantage. So these are the concerns. If you drill down through our website, you can see and what types of violent incidents have been occurring. Besides violent incidents, what is alarming is also an increase in vote buying and vote selling at the retail level. So again, that is a cause for concern for us.
Hello po,
Next question. Yes.
I'm Ferds from Sigla Research Center. I would want to follow up on the overvote count because we think it's also a significant number, especially when we try to include it in very tight races like the party lists. So, nasabi kanina na pag nag-overvote ay over 12, for example, sa ballots. Pero there are also multiple posts online saying na kahit na 12 yung binoto lang nila, yung pag pinasok nila sa machine, naka-count daw as overvote, so hindi sila na-include. It is just a verification. Meron din bang natanggap yung NAMFREL na mga reports na ganun? And if ever, paano rin to magko-contribute doon sa overall electoral integrity if ganito yung system on the counting of overvotes?
Well, we received several reports, even from our chairpersons here in Metro Manila. The case was you voted and then suddenly for that particular position, it was overvoted after scanning. The process there is for the voter to report it to the electoral board. The electoral board, there's a complaint form which which the voter has to fill up, and the voter is requested to sign at the back of the VVPAT or the recibo, right? And then that gets aside. The question is if the commission will go back to all the minutes of the voting and look for those instances of reports of VVPAT inconsistencies and how the COMELEC will handle those. So I don't know how the COMELEC will handle those, but we will work with the COMELEC. We will request for those instances so that we can study them as well.
Question?
Yeah. If you see some of the websites here, I could not pull it up, but you can see the provinces by number of voters or overvotes. Abra is one of the highest. So I don't know what's happening in that particular place. But again, if you drill down through the website, you can extract what provinces where it's coming from and what positions where overvotes come from. Senators, marami. Obviously, because of the number of positions.
Let me just clarify, yung sa overvotes, what was highlighted was the 5 million votes of Bongo, right? there were other instances of overvotes in the other positions, in the other contests, also impacting the candidates. So what is shown here is the total occurrences of the overvotes. Again, we have to seek clarification from the Commission on Elections on how the machines counted the overvotes.
All right.
Next question, please.
Good morning po. I'm EJ Makababad from Philippine Star. How do you assess the performance po of the ACMs from Miro when compared to the VCMs from Smartmatic? And based on your initial assessment, na-compound po ba yung situation ng overvotes because of these new machines?
Okay. Well, our point of view is that regardless of the machines that you adopt, the machine is just one of the components of the automated election system. It appears that the automated election system is still designed to facilitate vote counting, to make it faster. But what we fail to address is the voter experience and the voter satisfaction in making sure that they're confident that the votes that they're casting is counted properly. So yun yung nawala, transparency and auditability of the system. So to us, regardless of what type of machine is used, if the process and protocols are not observed properly, then it's useless. Even if you have an much improved machine. So it's really the process that has to be respected.
How about online voting po? Have you received reports about let's say experiences of voters abroad about online voting? And do you share the view po of some like PPCRV na i-extend na yung online voting sa mga seniors, tas gawin, let's say, a day before the elections po and all that in order to have seamless voter experience for vulnerable sectors po?
Well, you had two questions in there on overseas voting. First question was yung experience dun sa online voting. Earlier on, because the online voting started April 13, because that's a 1-month period. So earlier experience, there were reports that the expectation that that was set again, that the voters, the overseas voters would be able to verify their vote, right? So the expectation is if I'm allowed to verify my vote, I issued a QR code to allow me to access the systems, my votes in the system. So the expectation set was that I would see the ballot, right? Or at least the list of candidates that I chose, right? But what was displayed was a document that contained texts. To the layman, to the layperson, it was gibberish, But to the programmer, immediately recognizable that there were some commands inside the text, as well as the names of certain candidates. So the reaction of the voters is that, hey, why are these names coming out which I did not select? So that was taken up earlier on. So that was an issue addressed by the Commission. As regards to the PPCRV suggestion or recommendation to use online voting for the vulnerable sectors, particularly the seniors, that is another issue that has to be thoroughly studied, right? Because there's overseas voting, even the local absentee voting, the voters are able to vote for national positions only. Yes. So, if we use internet voting, vote anywhere, for the seniors, will we allow voting for the local positions? Again, it's how we design the system to allow maybe voting also at the local level. No? So again, it has to be thoroughly studied.
Dito, meron lang akong question doon sa numbers doon. Nakalagay, overvotes, 18 million, 18.5. Undervotes, 451 million. Which means that those numbers are not number of ballots, but rather number of votes.
The number of marks.
Number of marks. So yung 18 million, 18.5 million, does not mean 18.5 million ballots. Those are marks. So if it, instead of 12 marks for the Senate, naglagay ka ng 15, there will be 3 overvotes.
Right.
Ganon, ano? I suppose. Kasi yung numbers.
Per position yan eh. Per position ang overvotes. You look
Na-
at the tally there. May mga...
Kanya nga, but number of marks.
It's the number of marks.
Oo, kasi
Not
451 million, no?
Yeah, yeah.
Di ba?
Overall, hindi lang isang position.
So, hindi
All
ballots.
positions. Ayun o.
Ne-
Yeah.
Okay.
We can, in other words, if somebody voted for 13 for senators, all his votes are not counted.
That's right. It's not counted. For that particular contest.
Yeah, for senator, it's like voting for 2 mayors.
That's correct.
Then that vote is for mayor is not cast, right? Okay.
That's correct.
And that's your figure of 18 million.
It's per position. I mean, that's the aggregate already, the sum total of all the positions that were used.
Okay. All the positions that were cancelled.
Yes, yes.
No, the number of vote marks.
Yes, cancelled. The number of
Cancelled.
votes. Okay, so
Yung number ng circles na sinade mo, kung sobra dun sa allowed maximum,
In other words, we're supposed to mark 12 for the Senate. If you mark 13, then that's 1 overvote. If you mark 15, there are 3 overvotes. So yung 18.5 million na yun yung mga 3, 1 overvote. Total number of overvotes.
Because we classified them per position.
yes.
You know, so there's for mayor, for party list,
Yeah.
for, yeah.
So you don't
Okay.
know how many people overvoted.
No.
yes,
Okay?
it's not indicative. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
wala yun. Marks ito, marks.
Yes. So shall we go to the next question, if there's any?
Yes.
Sir, Bea po ulit from Bomba Radio Philippines. Ask ko lang, sir, anyone can answer po. Does this overvotes po can question the transparency ng ating election po this year, this midterm elections po? Kasi marami pong nagsasabi na ito po ay maaaring maging aberya pa sa mga susunod na election kung makakapagtala pa po ng mas maraming bilang ng overvotes po ngayon. Yan po.
Well, the overvotes happens if, let's say, the voter makes a mistake. So he had done 12 marks and then he added another unconsciously without counting the number of marks he had made. Another possibility is it was a deliberate overvoting because he did not want to leave that contest blank. Okay? I don't know, I don't see the connection to the transparency, right? Because that's, again, that's the voter behavior. It shows the voter behavior, no? And it can happen, again, in next elections, no? When we had the manual election, there were just discrete number of lines that you fill in. No, so there's no possibility of overvoting. But if you did overvote noon, your ballot will be marked spoiled. Right?
These are all just honest mistake po ng mga botante ngayong taon.
Like I said, it may be a mistake by the voter or maybe a deliberate act to overvote the position so that because of suspicions that after you vote, they will retrieve the ballot and shade if you leave the contest blank. No? Again, it may be a deliberate act.
If I may add to that, I think we have to include into the picture the complaints of some voters that when they received their ballots, there were pre-shaded candidates already. There were complaints about that. I don't know how many complaints, but there were complaints. So it's not only a voter's mistake, it's not only a voter's deliberate act on my, we have to put into the picture the possibility that there were pre-shaded ballots already because there were complaints about it.
So in some way, sir, it could affect the transparency of the elections pa rin po.
Yeah, transparency and integrity of the elections.
We are down to our last question from the media.
We'd like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Paulino Tan, the chairman of the Asia Pacific College.
Thank you for joining us, sir.
Hello, PYT.
Thank you.
Maybe we can invite questions from our observers, the international observers.
Yes. Robert?
No? Okay. So
They're just listening.
okay. So maybe that's
thank you
it.
very much. We have heard our questions from our friends from the media and the responses from our panelists. We'd like to thank them. So Colonel Eric Alvia, of course, Tata Medado of Asia Pacific College, Angel Averia, the national chairman of NAMFREL, Mr. Gus Lagman, and Mr. Christian Monsod for sharing with us their perspectives and their time today. Thank you also to Dr. Paulino Tan, chairman of Asia Pacific College, for making time for this media conference. And to all of you, our visitors and guests, thank you very much for joining us. And especially thank you to our student volunteers who work tirelessly to get this data out across. Have a good day, everyone. Would you like to deliver your closing remarks?
Sige. So closing remarks. So thank you very much for everyone. Thank you for this collaboration. You've seen how we process the data to extract insights and assess and make an assessment of the election. So I hope this becomes is institutionalized and this becomes a permanent fixture to analyzing election data in the elections. Thank you.
Yeah, Richard.